My husband divorced me by text and emptied our account. He had no idea what was coming. Welcome back with a new real shock story. Before we start, comment and tell me which city you're watching from. To the end, don't forget to subscribe and rate it from 0 to 10. Let's enjoy the story, everyone.
I never thought a simple ping on my phone would become the moment my life cracked in two. My name is Alec Rose, and this is what happened to me, what is still happening. I want you to believe me, because every word is truth, every moment felt in my bones. Before all this, life was steady. Not flashy, not perfect, but mine. I'd wake early, watch the sunrise from our balcony with a cup of chai, and listen to the city hush itself awake. The same narrow street below, the same neighbors tending their balconies. He, my husband, even then, would leave for work, glancing back at me with a half smile. I'd stay behind sometimes, working on my small blog, writing stories, dreaming of someday turning them into something real. We had a small apartment in a quiet part of the city. Nothing grand, but enough. Just enough. We paid the rent together. Split bills. Shared groceries. We talked about children, maybe next year. We said we'd travel. We saved slowly. The money was never large, but it was ours. And I believed it would always be. I remember a Thursday evening, 2 nights before everything changed. I came home just as the sky reddened. He was waiting, holding something, his face unreadable. I thought maybe he'd cooked. Maybe he'd bought flowers. But when I stepped in, he said simply, "We need to talk." His eyes were cold. I said okay, followed him to the couch, heart buzzing. But he didn't talk. He didn't explain. Instead, he ran his hands through his hair and looked away. The silence hung so thick I couldn't breathe. I asked what was wrong. He said nothing at first. Then, as though eyes turned inward, he said, I'm tired. And then, I'm leaving. I stared at him. Leaving? I echoed. And just like that, he walked out the door. No luggage. No warning. Disappeared into the night. I sat there, numb. My thoughts spun. He can't mean this. He said we'd work things out. We promised. We believed. He'll come back, right? Something will be explained. But that night, the emptiness sank deep. I slept badly. Woke up sweating. The next morning, my phone buzzed. A text. Just 4 words. We're done. Don't contact me. My vision blurred. My heart slammed. My mouth opened to scream, but no sound came out. I reread it, fingers shaking. We're done. Don't contact me. Then silence. No name. No goodbye. I stared at that text like it was poison. I wanted to delete it. I wanted to respond. But I feared what might happen if I did. That short message contained more cruelty than any arguing ever could. It carried finality. It carried erasure. My knees buckled. I sat on the floor, back leaned against the bed, tears blurring the screen. Memories flooded. The nights we held hands, waking up in the dark laughing, shared dreams whispered under thin blankets. All of it vanished in 4 cold words. I didn't move for hours. When I finally forced myself up, I walked to the bank app on my phone. My fingers trembled. I logged in. And when I saw the balance, 0, I gasped. Not just low. 0. The joint account we'd built together. The savings we'd scraped. Penny by penny. Gone. My heart slammed louder than ever. I thought it was a mistake. I refreshed. No change. I stared. He had emptied it. Every last rupee. I dropped the phone. It clattered on the floor. I sank down beside it, pressed my face against the cold tile. I sobbed. The betrayal felt alive, like fire beneath my skin. Then I heard something behind me, my own breath, ragged. A memory, the night before, his distant voice on a call that I'd laughed off. Strange charges on our account. A new business expense, he claimed. Small withdrawals I never questioned. I should have questioned. But love blinded me. The next moment, I stood. My knees scraped. I walked to the window and looked out. The city carried on, oblivious. Cars rolled. Neighbors talked. Life moved. But mine froze. I thought, I cannot disappear with him. I will not let him erase me. Not today. Not ever. In that moment, I made a choice. I would fight. I would gather every shred of evidence. Every transaction. Every secret account. I would press for answers. I would demand accountability, not just for him, but for every person who had ever been silenced by a cold text, a sudden exit, a whispered lie. Tonight, I lock my doors. Tomorrow, I begin. And I won't stop until the world sees what happened, until he knows he cannot outrun the truth. So this is where I start. This is the moment the calm ends and the storm begins. And what he did next, you will not believe. The next morning, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. Something inside me had gone cold, not dead, just clear. Like a sharp breath of winter air when you've been drowning in heat. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I knew this, I had to know the full truth. I wasn't going to sit around while he vanished into thin air with my trust, my money, and years of my life. So I started where anyone would, the bank. I showed up with swollen eyes and a tight voice. I explained the account was emptied without my knowledge. The woman behind the counter, polite but tired looking, tapped her keyboard. A minute passed. Then 2. And when she finally looked up, she said words I'll never forget. The account was closed yesterday. Legally. All funds transferred to another account by a joint holder. I'm sorry. I wasn't crying, but my heart felt like it cracked open in that chair. I asked if there was anything they could do, reverse it, flag it, something. She shook her head gently. Because you both had access, it's not considered unauthorized. But it was wrong. I felt it in my bones. This wasn't just a breakup. It was theft. It was betrayal wrapped in legal loopholes. I walked out, dizzy with anger. The worst part. Everyone I spoke to acted like it was just a sad story, not something they could fix. Friends gave me soft looks. One even said, "At least he didn't hurt you physically." And I wanted to scream. Because emotional damage, financial abuse, being erased, those are wounds, too. But people don't see them. I started digging. I pulled old bank statements, logged into every shared platform we'd ever used. Emails, subscriptions, cloud storage. I found things, strange things. Hotel bookings I'd never seen. Transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. One under a woman's name. A name I didn't know, yet. My stomach turned. I Googled her. Her social media was private, but a few posts were public, enough to punch the air from my lungs. There they were. Him and her. On a trip. Smiling. Holding hands. Wearing sunglasses I bought him last year for his birthday. It felt like watching someone else's life, except it was mine. Torn apart and replaced without warning. I was grieving someone who wasn't even grieving me back. He'd moved on, while I was still trying to understand what went wrong. But the real twist came from someone I didn't expect, a mutual friend. She messaged me, hesitant. "I wasn't sure if I should tell you," she wrote. "But he's been with her for a while. Even before you two split. He said you were difficult, that things were falling apart." I didn't believe him, but I didn't know how to get involved. Difficult. That word echoed. Like I was the problem. Like I had asked too much for simply trusting him. Like my love, steady, quiet, constant, was something inconvenient. I thanked her, closed the chat, and stared at my reflection in the laptop screen. My face looked the same, but everything behind it had changed. He didn't just leave me. He built a lie. Lived in it. Spent our money in it. And now he was gone, smiling in photos while I sat in a rented apartment filled with furniture we'd chosen together. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, phone clutched to my chest like it could somehow reverse time. But time doesn't go backward. It just keeps dragging you forward, whether you're ready or not. So the next morning, I found a lawyer. She listened carefully as I explained. She didn't flinch when I told her the money was gone, the account closed, and the man unreachable. She asked questions, took notes, and then she looked me in the eye and said, We can go after him. But we'll need proof. Everything you can find. That's when something switched in me. I wasn't just a woman left behind anymore. I was a woman on a mission. I went back through our shared emails, our old bills, our payment history. I printed screenshots, organized files. I built a timeline, his lies against the truth. I even found receipts from a furniture store in another city. He was furnishing a place with her, our money. And as I built the case, I felt my grief start to burn into something else. Something sharper. I wasn't chasing revenge. I was reclaiming my voice. Because this, all of it, wasn't just about a man leaving. It was about being treated like I was disposable. Like I didn't matter. Like my time, my love, and even my money were his to take when he was done pretending to care. And as I pieced it all together, one chilling thought kept coming back. He planned this. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't impulsive. It was calculated. And I had slept beside him, kissed him goodbye, loved him, while he was already building a life without me. I remember sitting on the floor, surrounded by papers, receipts, notes, my whole story laid out in facts and figures. And I whispered to myself, not out of weakness, but strength. He thinks I'm gone. But I'm just getting started. I didn't know how long it would take to get to court. Weeks, maybe months. But once I handed my lawyer that stack of evidence, the screenshots, the bank statements, the travel bookings, everything, things started moving. Not quickly, not easily, but enough to make me feel like I had a hand on the wheel again. She said we had a solid case, spousal abandonment, financial misconduct, and potential fraud. It wouldn't be easy, she warned me. People like him, they know how to hide behind charm and clean shirts and the benefit of the doubt. Especially men who wear good suits and speak with confidence. Especially when women like me, brown-skinned, soft-spoken, emotional by default, are expected to prove we're not overreacting. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I'd already lost everything. What else could he take from me? We filed the paperwork. A formal petition for divorce. An investigation request. A financial restraining order. It felt surreal, like I was building a case against a man I used to love. But I didn't have time for tears anymore. I was tired of being the only one who cried. The court date came faster than I expected. I remember standing outside the courthouse that morning, clutching my file like it was a shield. My hands were sweating, but my spine was straight. I wore a plain black dress. No makeup. No mask. Just me, raw and real. And then, I saw him. He walked in like it was nothing. No shame. No fear. Just that same smug confidence I used to mistake for charm. He had a lawyer with him. A man. Tall. Dismissive. The kind who looks at you like he's already decided you're wasting everyone's time. I didn't say a word. Neither did he. But for a second, just one, our eyes met. And in that tiny flicker, I saw it. The panic. The recognition that I wasn't here to beg or plead. I was here to win. The hearing was short. Just a preliminary review. My lawyer spoke first. Calm, direct, powerful. She laid out the timeline. The lies. The withdrawals. The other woman. His lawyer objected. Tried to say the money was mutually accessible. That the relationship had already deteriorated. That I was simply hurt, not robbed. But then my lawyer dropped the folder on the table. Receipts. Transfers. Messages. Pictures. Proof. He shifted in his seat. Ran a hand down his jaw like it itched. His cool started to crack. And that's when the judge paused, turned to him, and asked the one question he couldn't dodge. Did you take these funds without informing your spouse? There was a long silence. He didn't answer at first. His lawyer whispered something. He finally muttered, "Yes, but the damage was done." The judge didn't yell. He didn't get dramatic. He just nodded, made a note, and said we'd proceed to full financial disclosure. And just like that, his accounts were frozen. A full audit ordered. He was no longer in control. I walked out of that courtroom with my head high, my chest burning, my hands still shaking. But inside, I was alive. I had faced him. Not in a screaming match or some dramatic movie scene, but in a courtroom, with facts and fire. And for the first time since that awful text, he was the one who couldn't walk away. Later that week, I got a message. From the woman. Her. She didn't apologize. She said something vague, I didn't know everything, and then asked me not to involve her in the case. And I thought, how convenient. How easy it must be to live in someone else's stolen comfort and then step back when it gets uncomfortable. I didn't respond. I didn't need anything from her. This was never about her, anyway. This was about me. Finding my voice. Taking up space in a system that's not built to believe women like me when we say we were violated without bruises. Broken without being touched. And in that moment, standing in my tiny kitchen, reading that message on my cracked phone screen, I realized something. He never thought I'd make it this far. He thought I'd break quietly. Fade out. Start over with nothing. He thought I'd be too scared to speak up. Too ashamed to explain how I got left with $0 in an account I helped build. But I wasn't ashamed. Not anymore. And this, all of it, was no longer just about me. Because as I started telling people, more stories came out. Other women. Other versions of the same betrayal. One friend said her husband maxed out their credit cards and vanished. Another said her ex drained her retirement account during the divorce and got away with it. We were all stories swept under the rug. Until someone finally stood up and said, no more. So I kept going. Kept gathering. Kept fighting. Not just for the money. Not just for the justice. But to remind myself, and every other woman watching this, that we are not disposable. That our pain counts, even when no one sees it. That leaving someone empty doesn't make you free. And that some women, when pushed to the edge, don't fall. We rise. After the courtroom, something inside me shifted. But it wasn't relief. It was more like the moment after a storm, when the sky is still dark, but you know the rain has stopped. The danger wasn't gone, but at least now I was standing. The days that followed were some of the hardest I'd ever faced. I thought the worst was over when I saw him in that court, when the judge froze his accounts. But the truth is, the battle was only beginning. Because losing him didn't mean I had myself back. Everywhere I looked, I saw reminders of what we used to be. Photos still on the walls, his favorite chair in the corner, songs we played on repeat. I was haunted by memories and by the silence he left behind. It felt like living in a house that was supposed to be mine but no longer felt safe. I cried sometimes. Not because I missed him, but because I missed what I thought I had. The future we promised each other. The life we built on promises that turned out to be lies. But in those tears, I found something new, strength. Not the kind that comes from anger or revenge, but the quiet kind that grows when you decide to take care of yourself no matter what. I started small. I painted over the wall where his picture hung. I packed away the things he left behind, not because I was angry, but because I needed space to breathe. I reconnected with friends I'd lost touch with, the ones who reminded me I wasn't alone. And I learned to love myself again, the real me, not the one I thought he wanted. One afternoon, I sat down with a journal, the same one I hadn't touched in years. I wrote about the pain, the anger, the betrayal. But I also wrote about hope. About the woman I wanted to become. The woman who wouldn't let someone else's selfishness define her worth. Healing wasn't linear. Some days, I felt like I was making progress. Other days, the past would crash over me like waves in a storm. But slowly, I began to see the truth. This story wasn't just about loss. It was about power, my power to choose how to live, how to love, and how to rise from the ashes. The legal fight continued in the background, but I stopped letting it control my every thought. I started looking ahead, thinking about my career, my dreams, my future. I even started dating again, cautiously, carefully, because I wasn't broken. I was whole, just a little battered, maybe, but ready to love on my own terms. And every time I felt doubt creeping in, I remembered one thing: I survived. I fought. I stood up when the world tried to knock me down. But there's something else I learned, something that stings even now when I think about it. This story isn't just mine. It's the story of countless women, Women who have been silenced, erased, and betrayed. Women who don't have a platform or a voice, but who deserve justice just the same. So I ask you, the person listening right now, how many of us are still hiding our stories? How many of us are still afraid to speak because the world tells us we're too emotional, too complicated, or too much? What if we stopped hiding? What if we told the truth, even when it's painful, even when it's messy, even when it feels like no one's listening? Because that's how change begins. By telling our stories. By standing in the light, even when it's blinding. By refusing to be erased. I don't know how this story ends yet. The legal battle is still ongoing, and the scars will take time to fade. But I do know one thing for certain. I am not a victim. I am a survivor. And this is just the beginning. The day the final court decision came through, I was sitting alone in my small apartment. The sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting stripes across the worn-out carpet. My phone buzzed, and I saw the message from my lawyer. My heart pounded, not from fear, but from something like hope. She wrote, "The judge ruled in your favor. The funds will be returned to you. You've won the financial case." For a moment, I just stared at the screen. I didn't cry. I didn't cheer. I felt numb, like I was still trying to process everything that had happened. Because this wasn't just about money. It was about everything he tried to take from me. The trust, the future we built, the respect I deserved. But justice, even when it finally comes, isn't a clean, perfect thing. It's messy, slow, and often incomplete. Still, that ruling was proof that I wasn't invisible. That my story mattered. I thought about the long nights spent sorting through lies, the courtroom battles, the lonely moments wondering if I'd made a mistake by standing up. And I realized something important. This wasn't just my story anymore. It was a story for every woman who's been left with nothing but silence and shame. I reached out to others who had shared their stories with me. Women who had been betrayed, abandoned, and erased. We talked about how often our pain is dismissed, how society expects us to stay quiet. We shared our wounds and our strength. Because this fight isn't just legal. It's personal. It's about claiming our voices in a world that often tries to silence us. I still carry the scars of that time. The empty bed, the broken promises, the nights spent wondering if I was enough. But I also carry something more powerful now. A voice that refuses to be silenced. So here I am, sharing my story with you. Not because I want sympathy, but because I want change. Because if my story can help just one person find the courage to stand up, to say enough, then everything I've been through will have been worth it. The question I leave you with is this. How many more stories are waiting to be told? How many voices are still buried beneath fear and shame? And more importantly, what will you do when you hear them? Because change doesn't happen in silence. It happens when we choose to speak. When we choose to listen. When we choose to believe. This is my story. But it's not the end. It's a call to action. To all of us. To rise. To fight. And to never, ever be erased.